The recent Iran-Israel war, which ended with a fragile and uneasy ceasefire in June 2025, was a brutal wake-up call for Tehran's military and political leadership. The conflict left scars across the country, both physically and psychologically, and exposed vulnerabilities that had long been ignored or underestimated by those in power. Operation Rising Lion, the codename for Israel's Lightning Air campaign, laid bare the deep flaws in Iran's military apparatus, none more glaring than those in its air force. Despite years of rhetoric about self-reliance and resilience, the reality was far more sobering. Iran's air fleet is a relic of a bygone era, filled with pre-1979 American jets and a handful of Russian models, all kept flying by sheer ingenuity and a patchwork of spare parts. Iranian engineers and mechanics have performed miracles to keep these aircraft operational, but against modern adversaries, they are hopelessly outclassed and technologically obsolete. Israeli F-35s, equipped with cutting-edge stealth and electronic warfare capabilities, quickly seized air superiority. They dismantled Iran's air defenses with precision, leaving critical military and infrastructure sites exposed to devastating US-led strikes. The skies over Iran became a battleground that Tehran simply could not control. The losses were devastating. Airfields and radar stations reduced to rubble, senior commanders killed in targeted strikes, and brave pilots sent on near-suicidal missions with little hope of success. The psychological toll on the Iranian military was immense as the reality of their vulnerability became impossible to ignore. The war proved beyond any doubt that without control of the skies, Iran's vast ground forces and strategic depth meant little. Tanks and troops were left exposed, unable to maneuver or defend themselves against relentless air attacks. In the aftermath, Iran's leadership now faces an urgent and inescapable need to modernize. The war has forced them to confront the hard truth that survival in the modern era depends on closing this technological gap, and that their old assumptions about military strength are no longer valid. The old strategy, relying on proxies, asymmetric warfare, and a vast arsenal of missiles, wasn't enough to deter or defeat a technologically superior enemy. The limitations of this approach were laid bare for all to see. As soon as the fighting stopped, the search for a new supplier of advanced military hardware began in earnest. Iranian delegations traveled abroad, seeking partners willing to help rebuild and modernize their shattered air force and to provide the technology needed to defend their skies in the future. Iran's leaders are now determined never to be caught so unprepared again. The lessons of the war are clear. Only by embracing modernization and technological advancement can Iran hope to secure its sovereignty and protect its people from future threats. After the war, Iran's first move was to seek help from its longtime partner, Russia. Years of cooperation in Syria and arms deals had built expectations of support. But when crisis struck, Russia offered only words, no weapons. Promised deals for Su-35 jets, Mi-28 helicopters, and S-400 systems stalled endlessly. Moscow, wary of upsetting the Middle East balance and stretched by its own conflicts, refused to escalate. Iran felt betrayed. The alliance proved one-sided. Tehran's faith in Russia as a reliable partner was shattered. The Kremlin's reluctance forced Iran to rethink its alliances. If Russia wouldn't deliver, Iran had to look elsewhere. The search for a dependable partner became a matter of survival. This disappointment set Iran on a new path, one that pointed east. With Russia out, Iran turned to China, a partner with growing economic and strategic ties. China is Iran's top oil customer and a signatory to a 25-year cooperation pact. Unlike Russia, China is seen as more reliable and aligned against US influence. For Beijing, a stronger Iran distracts the US from the Indo-Pacific and secures vital energy supplies. Reports suggest oil for arms deals are already underway, with Chinese missile systems heading to Iran. China's Ministry of Defense recently signaled willingness to supply advanced aircraft to friendly nations. For Iran, this was a lifeline. The pivot to China is about more than weapons, it's about forging a new, resilient alliance. Tehran hopes Beijing will succeed where Moscow failed. Iran's hopes center on the Chinese J-10C Vigorous Dragon, a modern 4.5 generation multi-role fighter. The J-10C's AESA radar, advanced avionics, and glass cockpit give it a huge edge over Iran's aging fleet. Its PL-15 missile, with a range over 200 kilometers, can outmatch most Western air-to-air missiles. This combination threatens even stealthy adversaries like the F-35. For Iran, acquiring the J-10C would be its biggest military upgrade in decades. The jet is a direct answer to the technological superiority of Israel and Saudi Arabia. Pakistan's success with the J-10C only boosts its appeal. For Tehran, the vigorous Dragon is both a symbol of defiance and a practical tool to restore deterrence. For China, selling the J-10C to Iran is a high-stakes gamble. A stronger Iran serves Beijing's interests by challenging U.S. dominance in the Middle East. But China also values its lucrative ties with Saudi Arabia and the UAE, regional rivals of Iran. Arming Tehran risks alienating these partners and provoking Washington. The U.S. would see the sale as a direct challenge, risking new sanctions and diplomatic fallout. China's official stance is strategic ambiguity, hinting at support but avoiding firm commitments. Beijing may use the prospect of a sale as leverage in broader negotiations. The final decision will be a cold calculation of risk versus reward. The arrival of J-10Cs in Iran would upend the region's military balance. For decades, U.S. allies like Israel and the Gulf states have enjoyed air supremacy. The J-10C's advanced radar and missiles would force them to rethink their strategies. Even a small fleet, if well integrated, could inflict serious losses on attackers. This could trigger a new arms race, with Gulf states rushing to upgrade their own air forces. It might also push them closer to Israel, strengthening new security alliances. China would emerge as a major security player, challenging America's dominance. The region would become more multipolar and more volatile. Despite the logic behind the J-10C deal, it faces a daunting array of obstacles that threaten to derail it at every turn. The idea of Iran acquiring advanced Chinese fighter jets may seem straightforward on paper, but the reality is far more complicated and fraught with risk. Iran's economy is battered by years of crippling sanctions, internal mismanagement, and the lingering effects of war. Everyday life is marked by inflation, unemployment, and a currency in freefall. In this environment, the cost of modern fighter jets is almost unimaginable. Each J-10C comes with a price tag that would strain even a healthy economy. Iran has tried to leverage its oil reserves, proposing oil-for-arms deals to sidestep cash payments. But even these creative arrangements may not be enough to fund a fleet large enough to make a real difference. The scale of investment required is staggering, and Iran's options are limited. To truly shift the regional balance of power, Iran would need not just a handful, but dozens, if not hundreds, of advanced jets. That means years of pilot training, technical support, and a massive overhaul of its existing military infrastructure. The logistical and financial challenges are immense. Meanwhile, the United States is poised to use every diplomatic and economic tool at its disposal to block the sale. Washington has already threatened severe sanctions on any Chinese firms involved, hoping to deter Beijing from moving forward. Israel, too, is watching closely. Its leaders have vowed to lobby international partners and apply pressure wherever possible to disrupt the deal, viewing it as a direct threat to their security. Even within Iran and China, not everyone is on board. Powerful factions in both countries worry about becoming too dependent on each other, or about provoking the United States and key Arab partners. Internal debates and rivalries add yet another layer of uncertainty. With so many moving parts, the deal remains far from certain. Every negotiation is shadowed by doubt and hesitation. Powerful forces, both seen and unseen, are arrayed against it, each with their own interests and red lines. Iran's weak economy, combined with fierce domestic and international opposition, may ultimately prove insurmountable. The risks are enormous, and the path forward is anything but clear. Yet for Tehran, the stakes are simply too high to walk away. The dream of modernizing its air force and reshaping the balance of power in the region is a powerful motivator, one that ensures Iran will keep pushing, no matter the odds. For Israel and the U.S., the prospect of advanced Chinese J-10C fighter jets landing in Iran is nothing short of a nightmare scenario. These jets, equipped with cutting-edge radar and missile systems, would dramatically shift the balance of power in the region, raising the stakes for every player involved. Israel's security has always depended on maintaining air superiority over its neighbors. The arrival of the J-10C would erode that edge, forcing Israel to rethink its entire defense strategy. Israeli pilots, who have long trained for dominance in the skies, would now face a new and formidable adversary. Any future strike on Iranian nuclear or military facilities would become far riskier, with the threat of advanced Chinese jets and upgraded Iranian air defenses making every mission more complex and dangerous. For decades, the United States has worked tirelessly to keep advanced weapons out of Iranian hands, using sanctions, diplomacy, and covert operations to slow Tehran's military ambitions. A Chinese-Iranian arms deal would be a direct challenge to U.S. policy and influence in the Middle East, signaling a new era of great power competition and undermining years of American efforts to isolate Iran militarily. Gulf states, too, would be alarmed, forced to spend even more to maintain their own edge. The prospect of a better-armed Iran would trigger a regional arms race, with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others scrambling to upgrade their own air forces and missile defenses. Their ties with China would be tested as Beijing arms their main rival. Gulf leaders would have to weigh lucrative economic partnerships with China against the growing security threat posed by Chinese weapons in Iranian hands. If Iran overcomes the diplomatic and logistical obstacles to acquiring the J-10C, the consequences will be profound. Tehran would gain new confidence, emboldening its regional ambitions and potentially altering the calculus of conflict across the Middle East. China's role as a security provider would rise, giving Beijing unprecedented influence over the region's future. The Middle East would enter a new, unpredictable era, one shaped not just by local rivalries, but by the ambitions of global powers. The vigorous dragon could change the game for everyone, and Washington is desperate to keep it grounded, knowing that the next chapter in the region's history may be written in the skies.